The stars hung cold and distant in the frontier sector, their light barely reaching the assembled fleets that faced each other across the void. Captain Daniel stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, his weathered hands gripped behind his back as he watched the enemy formation on the main display. The ship hummed around him with the familiar rhythm of aging systems, a sound he had grown to love over 30 years of service. The Galactic Coalition fleet sparkled like jewels against the darkness. Their vessels gleamed with polished hulls and pulsing energy shields that shimmered in shades of blue and violet. Each ship represented the pinnacle of alien engineering, sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that could tear through planets. There were over 200 of them, arrayed in perfect formation like predators circling wounded prey. Behind Daniel, the human defensive fleet looked like relics from a forgotten war. 28 vessels in total, each one unpatched, their hulls dark with age and countless repairs. The Endeavor itself had served in the old Earth Wars, a conflict that ended before most of his crew were born. Paint peeled from her sides. Rust showed in places where the maintenance teams could not reach. She looked tired. She looked weak. That was exactly the point. "Captain, incoming transmission," Lieutenant Karen Shaw announced from the weapons station. Her young face showed tension, fingers hovering over controls that seemed primitive compared to the energy systems the Coalition used. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Daniel said calmly. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice filled with contempt and amusement echoed through the command center. "Human vessels, this is of the Dominion speaking for the Galactic Coalition. We observe your fleet with great interest." The alien's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Tell me, do these ships actually function, or are they simply decorative, perhaps museum pieces you brought to show us your glorious history?" Laughter erupted across the Coalition channel. Daniel could hear dozens of alien voices joining in the mockery. His jaw tightened, but his expression remained neutral. Around him, his bridge crew shifted uncomfortably, anger flashing in their eyes. "They even brought their fusion reactors," another voice chimed in. "How quaint! My ancestors used such primitive technology 3,000 years ago." "Look at their weapons," a third voice added. "Kinetic projectiles and chemical propellants. They plan to throw rocks at us like children in a playground." More laughter filled the bridge. Karen's hands formed fists on her console. The young lieutenant looked like she wanted to say something, but a glance from Daniel kept her silent. "Sir," the communications officer whispered, "Admiral Grant is on secure channel." Daniel touched his earpiece. "Here." "Stay calm, Daniel." Admiral Lisa Grant's voice came through, steady and cool. "Let them have their fun. Every insult makes what comes next more satisfying." "Understood, Admiral." Continued his broadcast. "Humanity, your arrogance in bringing such garbage to face us is almost admirable. Almost. We offer you one chance to avoid complete destruction. Surrender the 3 systems we have claimed. Pack up these floating scrap heaps and return to your core worlds. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why the Coalition rules the galaxy." The transmission ended with more laughter. The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of sensors and the hum of the old reactor core deep in the ship's belly. "Captain, they're moving into attack formation," Karen reported, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Energy signatures increasing across their fleet. They're charging weapons." Daniel watched the tactical display as Coalition ships spread out, forming a wide net designed to envelope the human fleet. Commander knew his business. The formation was textbook perfect for engaging an inferior force. They planned to surround the humans and destroy them with minimal effort. "All ships maintain position," Daniel ordered into the fleet channel. "Hold formation and await further orders." "Sir, shouldn't we at least raise shields?" Karen asked. "Our shields won't stop their weapons anyway," engineer called from his station near the reactor controls. The older man's face showed no concern, just patient waiting. "Save the power for later." Down in the Endeavor's engineering section, watched his instruments with the focus of a surgeon. The old fusion reactor showed steady output, exactly what Coalition sensors would expect from a ship this age. But beneath the reactor, in spaces that did not appear on any schematic the aliens had ever seen, other systems waited in silence. Massive power cores sat dormant, their heat signatures masked by the fusion reactor's output. Magnetic locks held them secure, waiting for the right moment. Had spent 15 years installing those systems. He knew every circuit, every power coupling, every emergency override. The Coalition thought they understood human technology. They were wrong. On the bridge, Daniel received updates from across the fleet. Every captain reported the same thing. The coalition was moving into position, weapons hot, shields at maximum. They broadcast more insults, more demands for surrender. Some alien crews were actually recording the event, planning to share the humiliating defeat of humanity with their home worlds. "Sir, they're demanding a response," the communications officer said. "Wants our formal surrender within 10 minutes." Daniel smiled, a cold expression that did not reach his eyes. "Tell him we need to consult with our leadership. Request 30 minutes to consider his generous offer." "They'll see that as weakness," Karen said. "Good," Daniel replied. The coalition agreed to wait, their contempt growing with each passing minute. Broadcast again, telling the humans to hurry up and accept the inevitable. Some coalition ships broke formation to circle the human fleet, scanning the old vessels with active sensors. "They're getting detailed scans of our ships," Karen reported. "Sir, they'll know our capabilities." "Let them look," said from engineering. "They'll only see what we want them to see." Deep in the Endeavor's hidden bays, systems began a silent startup sequence. Automated processes checked connections, tested circuits, readiness. In similar bays across the human fleet, the same preparations occurred. 28 old ships held secrets that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human capability. Daniel's earpiece crackled. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. Final authorization codes are being transmitted now. Prepare for Operation Titan Strike." "Acknowledged, Admiral," Daniel responded. He looked at his crew, seeing the mixture of fear and anticipation on their faces. They knew what was about to happen. They had trained for this moment. "Captain, the Coalition fleet is moving," Karen announced. "They're advancing. Estimate contact in 5 minutes." "Very well," Daniel said. He opened the fleet channel. "All ships, this is Captain. Execute on my mark. Engineering, release magnetic locks on all hangar bays." The Coalition scanning officer aboard the flagship studied his displays with growing satisfaction. The human ships yielded their secrets easily, their primitive technology unable to hide from advanced sensors. Every reading confirmed what the Coalition already knew. These vessels were ancient, barely functional relics that had no business in a modern conflict. "Commander," the officer reported, "scans are complete. The human fleet operates on fusion reactors at least 60 years old. Their shields are minimal, basic electromagnetic barriers that our weapons will cut through in seconds. Weapons systems are entirely kinetic-based, mostly in missile tubes. No energy weapons detected." Studied the data with the calm confidence of someone who had fought 100 battles and won them all. His 4 eyes moved across the tactical displays, examining the human formation. "Any hidden capabilities? Cloaked vessels? Advanced mines?" "Nothing, Commander. What you see is what they have, old ships with old weapons." "Pathetic's voice came from behind. The Had joined on the command deck, eager to witness the humans' defeat personally. "They dare to threaten the Coalition with this garbage. It is an insult to our intelligence." Nodded slowly. "They must be desperate. Perhaps they hope we will show mercy if they appear weak enough." "Mercy," laughed, the sound harsh in the filtered air of the ship. "We will give them mercy by making their destruction quick. Send another message. Tell them their time is up." The communication went out across all channels. "Human fleet, your time for consideration has expired. We detect no movement toward retreat. This means you choose death. How unfortunate. Your species showed such promise when we first encountered you. Now you will serve as an example to others who might challenge Coalition authority." Aboard the Endeavor, Lieutenant Karen Shaw listened to the message with barely controlled rage. Her fingers danced across her console, checking and rechecking the weapon systems. They were ready, loaded with depleted uranium rounds that could punch through ship armor. The missile tubes held chemical rockets with conventional warheads. Everything looked exactly as primitive as it actually was. But Karen knew the truth. These weapons were not the real threat, they were the distraction. "They're so confident," she muttered to herself. "Confidence is a weapon," Daniel replied from the captain's chair. "But it can cut both ways. Overconfidence leads to mistakes." In engineering, watched his screens with the patience of someone who had waited years for this moment. The massive power cores hidden deep in the ship were cycling through their startup sequence, but the process was silent, masked by the normal fluctuations of the fusion reactor. To Coalition sensors, nothing had changed. The Endeavor still read as a tired old warship running on outdated technology. touched a control opening a private channel to the hangar bays. Major Rogers, status report. "We're ready down here," Rogers responded. The Major sat in the cockpit of his Titan, his body connected to the machine through neural interfaces that turned thought into action. Around him, 3 more Titans stood ready in their launch cradles. Each machine was 50 meters of composite armor, experimental weapons, and human determination. "Just say when." Soon promised, very soon. Across the human fleet, similar conversations occurred in similar hidden spaces. Engineers monitored power cores. Pilots sat in Titan cockpits. Crews waited for the order that would change everything. The Coalition fleet advanced in perfect formation, their weapons charging to full power. Energy crackled along their hulls as shield generators reached maximum output. Their plan was simple and brutal. Surround the human fleet, disable their engines with precision strikes, then systematically destroy each vessel. The entire battle would last perhaps 10 minutes. Subcommander Eth sat at his station aboard one of the Coalition cruisers, watching the advance with growing unease. He was young for his rank, promoted based on tactical scores rather than combat experience. The data said this battle was already won, but something felt wrong. "Commander," he spoke to his superior, "permission to speak." "What is it, Eth?" "The humans are not retreating, they are not even maneuvering. They sit in formation, waiting for us to close range." "Why?" His commander laughed. "Because they are fools. They know they cannot outrun us, so they accept their fate." "Or they want us close," Eth said quietly. "What if this is a trap?" "A trap," the commander gestured at the tactical display. "With what? Their ancient ships, their primitive weapons. You see shadows where there is only light, young one. Watch and learn how wars are truly won." Eth fell silent, but his unease grew. He pulled up historical files on humanity, reading through the records of first contact 30 years ago. The humans had seemed peaceful then, eager to join the galactic community. But there were notes in the files, observations from the initial meetings. Human representatives had been careful, measured, revealing little about their capabilities. When pressed about military strength, they had been vague. What if that vagueness was intentional? The Coalition fleet reached optimal firing range, gave the order. "All ships target the human vessels, disable their engines first. I want them alive long enough to witness their defeat." Energy beams lanced through space, brilliant streams of concentrated power that could melt through ship hulls like acid through paper. The first volley struck the human fleet, impacts flaring bright against the old vessels. The human shields held, barely. Electromagnetic barriers flickered and strained under the assault, but they held. Again ordered, increase power by 20%. The second volley hit harder. This time, shields failed across 3 human vessels. Energy beams scorched armor, leaving molten scars. One ship began venting atmosphere from a hull breach. "They're damaged," the weapons officer reported. "Multiple hull breaches detected. That ship is losing power." Smiled with satisfaction. "Just as expected. Continue the attack. I want to hear their surrender within minutes." But Daniel did not look concerned. He stood on the Endeavor's bridge watching the damage reports flow in. 3 ships hit, minor casualties, systems functioning within acceptable parameters. Everything was going exactly according to plan. "Admiral Grant is signaling," the communications officer said. "She's transmitting final authorization codes." Daniel felt his heart rate increase slightly. This was it. The moment humanity had prepared for since the Coalition had accidentally destroyed 2 human colony ships 5 years ago. Since they had claimed resource-rich systems that humanity had discovered first. Since they had treated humans like children playing at spacefaring. "No more." "All ships," Daniel said into the fleet channel, his voice carrying to every human vessel in the sector. "You have authorization to deploy. Release the Titans. Show them what humanity really built while they laughed at our scrap metal." Deep in the Endeavor's hidden bays, magnetic locks disengaged with heavy metallic clangs. Massive hangar doors began to open, concealed panels sliding apart to reveal the secrets within. Watched his power readings surge as the Titans activated their own reactors, drawing on power cores that dwarfed the old fusion reactor in output. Rogers felt his Titan respond to his thoughts. The neural interface translated his intentions into action faster than conscious thought. His machine stood from its launch cradle, servos humming with contained power. Titan Unit Alpha ready for deployment, he reported. Across the fleet, similar reports came in. Titan Unit Bravo ready, Charlie ready, Delta through Omega all ready. 112 Titans total, hidden in 28 ships the Coalition thought they understood. The Coalition sensors screamed warnings. "Commander," the scanning officer shouted aboard's flagship. "Energy signatures are spiking across the human fleet. Massive power readings, source unknown, I'm detecting." "No, that cannot be right." "Report clearly," demanded. "Sir, the human ships are opening bays. Something is emerging. Multiple contacts, large mass signatures. Energy readings are off the scale." Eth pulled up the sensor data on his own screen. His blood ran cold. The numbers made no sense. The power readings coming from the human fleet now exceeded the entire Coalition force combined. And those mass signatures. The first Titan cleared the Endeavor's hangar bay, and space itself seemed to hold its breath. The machine moved with fluid grace that its massive size, 50 meters of composite armor and weapon systems that existed only in Coalition nightmares. Its form was humanoid but refined for combat, every line designed for efficiency and lethality. Plasma cannons extended from its arms. Missile pods dotted its shoulders. A particle beam array sat centered in its chest, the focusing crystal already glowing with building power. Major Rogers felt the Titan respond to his thoughts as naturally as his own body. The neural interface translated his intentions instantly, making the massive machine an extension of his will. He raised one arm, targeting systems locking onto a Coalition cruiser that hung 2 kilometers away. "Titan Unit Alpha deployed," he reported calmly. "Weapons hot, engaging." The plasma cannon fired. Superheated matter streaked across the void at a fraction of light speed, crossing the distance in less than a heartbeat. The Coalition cruiser's shields flared brilliant blue as they struggled to absorb the impact. They failed. The plasma tore through the energy barrier like it was paper, splashing across the ship's hull. Metal vaporized. The cruiser's midsection glowed white-hot, then split apart as internal atmosphere explosions tore it open from within. "First kill," said without emotion. "Proceeding to next target." Across the human fleet, more Titans emerged. They came in waves, 4 to 6 from each vessel, until space filled with over 100 massive combat machines. Each one moved with impossible agility, their AI-assisted systems allowing maneuvers no ship could match. They spread out in precise formations, surrounding the Coalition fleet even as the Coalition had planned to surround them. Aboard's flagship, chaos erupted on the command deck. Sensor officers shouted conflicting reports. Tactical displays filled with red warning icons. The carefully planned battle had dissolved into confusion in seconds. "What are we facing?" demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. "Someone give me clear information." The chief science officer pulled up analysis data, his hands shaking as he processed the readings. "Commander, they appear to be autonomous combat units. 50 meters tall, roughly humanoid configuration. Armor composition is unknown, some kind of composite we have never encountered. Power output per unit exceeds our heavy cruisers. Weapon systems include plasma cannons, particle beams, kinetic accelerators, and what appears to be antimatter missiles." "Antimatter?" Space had lost all color. "The humans have antimatter weapons." "Where did these come from?" growled. "Our intelligence said nothing about such weapons, nothing." "Sir, they were hidden inside the ships," the scanning officer reported. "The vessels we thought were warships are actually carriers. The old hulls, the primitive systems, it was all a disguise. They wanted us to think they were weak." Eth felt sick. His earlier suspicions had been correct, but knowing that brought no satisfaction. The Coalition fleet was trapped, surrounded by weapons they did not understand, facing an enemy they had spent the last hour mocking. "All ships combat formation Delta," ordered. "Concentrate fire on the Titans, bring them down." The Coalition fleet responded with discipline born of centuries of military tradition. Energy beams lanced out from 200 ships, converging on the nearest Titans. The volume of fire was staggering, enough to crack a small moon. The Titans moved. Their reaction time was inhuman because it was. The neural interfaces allowed their pilots to respond faster than conscious thought, guided by AI that predicted enemy fire patterns milliseconds before they occurred. Most of the energy beams missed, striking empty space where Titans had been moments before. The few that connected splashed against armor that had been specifically designed to counter energy weapons, composite layers that dispersed and absorbed the impact. Roger's Titan took 3 direct hits. The impact sent him spinning, alarms screaming in his cockpit as the outer armor layer ablated away. But the inner structure held. The machine stabilized, gyroscopes compensating for the spin. He returned fire, his particle beam punching through a coalition destroyer's shields and core in one shot. "Taking hits but holding," he reported. "Armor at 87%, all systems green." Around him, other Titans reported similar results. The coalition weapons were powerful, but they had been optimized for ship-to-ship combat. The Titan's armor had been designed by scientists who understood exactly what the coalition used and how to counter it. Dr. Helen Murphy sat in her lab aboard one of the human carriers, monitoring the battle through direct feeds from the Titans. She had spent 12 years developing the armor composition, testing thousands of materials before finding the right combination. Carbon lattice primary structure for strength, ceramic composite outer layer for energy dissipation, reactive gel middle layer that hardened on impact. The Coalition's energy weapons were simply the wrong tool for the job. "Titan 7 has lost an arm," someone reported over the tactical channel. "Pilot is alive but withdrawing to defensive position." "Titan 12 confirms kill on enemy battlecruiser," another voice called. "Moving to support Titan 3. The battle had transformed into something the Coalition had never experienced. In every previous conflict, they had enjoyed superior numbers and technology. They would position their fleets, calculate firing solutions, and systematically destroy enemy vessels with overwhelming firepower. War was predictable, mathematical, controlled. This was chaos. The Titans moved through their formation like sharks through a school of fish, targeting and destroying vessels faster than the Coalition could coordinate responses. Their size let them maneuver in ways ships could not, dodging between friendly vessels, using Coalition ships as shields against friendly fire. Rogers pushed his Titan into a spin, avoiding fire from 3 directions at once. He locked onto a Coalition cruiser, fired his shoulder-mounted missiles, then immediately pivoted to engage a different target with his plasma cannon. The missiles struck the cruiser's engine section, antimatter warheads detonating with blinding flashes. The ship simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the molecular level. "Alpha Unit, this is Endeavor Actual," Daniel's voice came through. "You're getting surrounded, fall back to support position." "Negative, Captain," responded. "We're in their formation now. This is where we do the most damage." Daniel watched from the Endeavor's bridge as the Titans worked. The old fleet hung back, their role complete. They had delivered the Titans to the battle. Now they provided support fire, their conventional weapons adding to the chaos, keeping Coalition forces off balance. Karen Shaw coordinated the fire, targeting Coalition vessels that tried to focus on individual Titans. Her shots were precise, picking off shield generators and weapon emplacements. The kinetic rounds might be primitive, but they hit hard. "Captain, the Coalition is trying to retreat," she reported. 15 ships are breaking formation, attempting to reach jump distance." "Let them go," Daniel ordered. "We need witnesses." Watch the battle from flagship with growing horror. This was supposed to be a simple show of force, a quick battle to remind humanity of their place in the galaxy. Instead, his fleet was being systematically destroyed by weapons that should not exist. "We need to withdraw," he said to order a full retreat. "We cannot retreat," replied, his voice heavy. "They have surrounded us. Any ship that breaks formation will be isolated and destroyed. We must punch through their line." "Then do it," order the attack. Gave the command. 50 Coalition ships concentrated their fire on a single section of the Titan formation, attempting to blast a hole through their lines. Energy beams filled space with lethal light. For a moment, it seemed to work. 3 Titans went down under the concentrated assault, their armor finally failing. But the gap they created closed immediately as other Titans moved to fill it, and the human fleet responded. Admiral Grant gave a single cold order that echoed across every human vessel. "All ships open fire, full barrage. Show them what our scrap metal can really do." The old ships opened up with everything they had, fired in perfect synchronization. The Coalition flagship shuddered as another impact rocked its frame, gripped his command console, watching his fleet die on the tactical display. Over 70 ships gone in 15 minutes. The survivors scattered across the battlefield, their perfect formation shattered, each vessel fighting for its own survival. "Sir, we have borders," the security officer reported, his voice tight with fear. Multiple breaches on decks 7, 12, and 19. They're inside the ship. Felt cold dread settle in his gut. What breached us? Show me. The security feed appeared on screen. A Titan filled the corridor, too large for the space, its frame scraping against walls and ceiling. It moved forward with deliberate steps, weapons raised. Coalition security forces opened fire with everything they had: energy rifles, plasma charges, heavy weapons that could stop armored vehicles. The Titan walked through the fire like rain. Its armor absorbed the impacts without slowing. It raised one arm and fired its plasma cannon. The corridor filled with superheated gas. When it cleared, 20 security officers were simply gone, vaporized. "How did it get inside?" demanded, his voice breaking. "Our hull integrity sensors showed no breach until it was already aboard." "They cut through our hull," the security officer explained. "Used some kind of focused cutting beam, went through our armor in seconds." Rogers moved through the Coalition flagship with purpose. His mission was simple: reach the bridge, disable the ship's command structure. His Titan's size made the corridors tight, but the machine's strength simply tore through obstacles. Bulkheads crumpled under his touch. Security doors ripped from their mountings. Coalition crew fled before him. Some tried to fight, all failed. "Alpha, this is Beta 6, his radio crackled. "I'm inside the carrier Devastation, making my way to engineering." "Copy that, Beta 6, responded. "Command has cleared us for systematic disabling. No mercy protocols in effect." No mercy? Those words had been debated in human command for months before this operation. Some admirals had argued for restraint, for measured force. Admiral Grant had been clear in her opposition. The Coalition had spent 5 years pushing humanity, testing boundaries, destroying colony ships and calling them accidents. They had killed thousands of humans while demanding humanity accept it as the price of being junior members of the galactic community. That time was over. Reached an intersection. His sensors detected 40 Coalition soldiers ahead, dug into defensive positions with heavy weapons. They opened fire the moment he rounded the corner. The barrage was impressive, coordinated, exactly what military doctrine called for. His Titan's shields flared. The particle beam shots and plasma bolts splashed against the energy barrier, overloading it in seconds. But seconds was all needed. He fired his own weapons, not at the soldiers, but at the ceiling above them. The plasma cannon melted through support beams. 20 tons of deck plating crashed down, crushing the defensive position. He continued forward without stopping. Aboard the Endeavor, Daniel monitored reports from across the battlefield. The Titans had breached 17 Coalition capital ships. Human boarding parties followed behind them, securing vessels and taking prisoners. The few Coalition ships that had tried to run were being hunted down by Titan units operating at maximum thrust. "Captain, we're receiving distress calls from the Coalition," the communications officer said. "They're begging for mercy, asking for terms of surrender." "Jam their long-range communications," Daniel ordered. "I want nothing leaving this sector, no calls for help, no warnings. When this is done, survivors will carry our message personally." Karen Shaw looked up from her weapons console. "Sir, is that wise? If we jam their communications, the Coalition might think we destroyed their entire fleet. They might retaliate." "Let them try," Daniel replied coldly. "They started this with their arrogance. They continued it with their attacks on our colonies. For 5 years, we begged them to stop. We showed restraint. We tried diplomacy. They mistook kindness for weakness." He pulled up a file on his personal display. Images appeared, images he had reviewed 100 times but never grew numb to. The colony ship Horizon torn apart by Coalition energy weapons. 3,000 civilians dead, including children. The Coalition had called it a navigation error, an accident. The colony ship New Dawn destroyed 6 months later. 2,000 dead, another accident they claimed. After New Dawn, humanity had stopped asking for peace. They had started preparing for war. Reached the flagship's bridge. The door was reinforced, designed to withstand assault. His Titan's cutting beam reduced it to slag in 30 seconds. He stepped through into a command center filled with Coalition officers, all staring at him with expressions ranging from shock to terror. "I am Major Rogers of the Human Defense Force," he announced, his voice amplified through external speakers. "This vessel is now under human control. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Resist and you will die. Choose now." stepped forward, his four eyes meeting the Titan's sensors. The commander stood straight despite knowing he faced death. "I am commander. I am responsible for this fleet. Take me. Let my crew live." "Your crew will live if they stand down," said. "You will live to deliver a message to the Coalition Council. That is your purpose now." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Coalition vessels surrendered or were destroyed. Those that fought to the end died quickly under overwhelming firepower. Those that surrendered found themselves boarded, their crews taken prisoner, their ships disabled. The human fleet moved through the sector methodically, leaving no Coalition vessel operational. Admiral Grant coordinated the operation from her command ship, her orders precise and merciless. Every Coalition vessel would be accounted for. Every crew would know exactly what happened here. "Admiral, Titan 14 reports they have secured the Coalition carrier," an officer reported. "The ship is heavily damaged, but the crew survived." "Good," Grant replied. "Have them document everything. I want full records of this battle, every engagement, every surrender. The Coalition needs to understand what they forced us to become." Worked in the Endeavor's engineering section, monitoring power levels across the fleet. The hidden systems were performing perfectly. The Titans showed minimal damage overall. The old ships had held up under combat stress. Everything humanity had built in secret, every system they had concealed, had worked exactly as designed. 30 years, he muttered to himself. We spent 30 years letting them think we were weak, building these machines in hidden shipyards, testing them where no sensors could reach, and they never suspected a thing. A younger engineer looked over. "Sir, was it worth it, all that deception?" Gestured at the tactical display showing Coalition ships burning or surrendering. "We tried honesty. We tried showing them our true capabilities at first contact. They saw our technology and laughed, said we were barely space-capable, so we gave them exactly what they expected to see. Old ships, old weapons, while we built this in secret." The battle wound down. Of the 200 Coalition vessels that had entered the sector, only 47 remained operational. Those survivors were herded into a tight formation, surrounded by Titans and disabled human carriers that had deployed their weapons. The crews were terrified, their arrogance completely broken. Rogers returned to the Endeavor, his Titan settling into its hidden bay. He disconnected from the neural interface slowly, feeling the ache in his muscles as his body remembered it was separate from the machine. Around him, other pilots were doing the same, emerging from their cockpits exhausted but victorious. Daniel met him in the hangar bay. "Good work, Major. Your unit performed beyond expectations." "We did what we had to do," said. "But, sir, we killed thousands today, Coalition crews that were just following orders." "They killed our civilians," Daniel replied. "They destroyed our colony ships and called them accidents. They pushed us until we had no choice but to push back. What we did today, we did without mercy because mercy is what they took advantage of for 5 years." In the command center of the damaged Coalition flagship, sat in what remained of his chair. Stood nearby, both of them prisoners now, watching as human soldiers secured the ship. "They planned this," whispered. "For years they planned this. The weak fleet, the old ships, all of it was bait." "We took the bait," replied bitterly. "We mocked them, we thought ourselves superior, and now we pay the price for our arrogance." A human officer approached, her uniform bearing the insignia of naval intelligence. "Commander, you are being released." Both aliens stared at her. "Released," repeated. "You are letting us go." 47 ships will be allowed to leave this sector, the officer explained. "Damaged but functional. You will carry a message to the Coalition Council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity will no longer tolerate aggression. Tell them that the next Coalition fleet that threatens human worlds will the frontier sector hung silent in space. The battle was over." Wreckage drifted through the void, twisted metal and venting atmosphere marking, where over 150 Coalition vessels had met their end. The surviving ships clustered together like frightened animals, their crews working frantically to repair damage, while human Titans circled them like patient predators. Rogers stood in the wrecked bridge of the Coalition flagship, his combat armor still marked with scorch marks from the battle. Before him, sat in what remained of his command chair, the arrogant alien now looking small and broken. Commander stood nearby, his 4 eyes tracking every movement. "Why spare us?" asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You destroyed our fleet, you killed thousands of our people, why not finish the job? Studied the alien for a long moment before answering. Because dead men don't carry messages. You're alive for one reason only, to tell the Coalition Council what happens when they push humanity too far. They will retaliate, said. The Council will not let this stand. They will send more fleets, bigger fleets. Let them come, replied coldly. What you faced today was a defensive fleet protecting the frontier sector. 28 old carriers with 112 Titans. We have 20 more sectors. Each one has similar defenses. And beyond that, he paused, letting the implications sink in. Beyond that, you don't want to know what Earth itself can deploy. His face paled. You have more of these machines. We've been building them for 30 years, said. While you laughed at our old ships and primitive weapons, we built factories in hidden asteroid fields. We trained pilots in secret bases. We developed weapons specifically designed to counter yours. Every insult you threw at us, every dismissive comment about our capabilities, made it easier to hide what we were really doing. He turned to leave, then stopped at the ruined doorway. 47 ships. That's how many we're letting go. You have 12 hours to make repairs and leave this sector. If you're still here after that, we finish what we started. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the Coalition survivors prepare for departure. Around her, officers coordinated the cleanup operation. Disabled Coalition vessels were being stripped of weapons and any useful technology. Human casualties were minimal, mostly minor injuries from the few direct hits Titans had taken. Admiral, Earth Command is requesting a full report, her communications officer said. Tell them the operation was a complete success, Grant replied. Coalition fleet destroyed with minimal losses to our forces, message delivered as planned. She pulled up a private communication channel, one that connected to dozens of hidden facilities across human space. Dr. Murphy, are you seeing this? Helen Murphy's face appeared on screen, transmitted from her lab deep in a facility that officially did not exist. Behind her, technicians monitored data streams from the battle, analyzing every engagement, every weapon performance, every tactical decision. I'm seeing it, Admiral, Helen said. The Titans performed even better than projected. Armor held up to 93% efficiency against energy weapons. Plasma cannons showed 100% reliability. Neural interface response times averaged 0.03 seconds. Good, Grant said. Because we're going to need more of them. This battle bought us time, but it also revealed our hand. The Coalition knows about the Titans now. They'll adapt. Let them try, Helen replied. We're already working on the next generation. Faster, stronger, more heavily armed. By the time they figure out how to counter the current Titans, we'll be deploying machines they can't even imagine. Aboard the Endeavor, Daniel gathered his bridge crew for a final meeting before they returned to patrol duties. Karen Shaw sat at the weapons console, still processing everything that had happened. Stood near engineering station, his face showing exhaustion but also satisfaction. I need to know, Karen said quietly. Did we do the right thing? We killed thousands today. That battlecruiser I hit, it had over 2,000 crew. They're all dead because I pulled a trigger. Daniel sighed. 5 years ago, I commanded a patrol ship in the outer colonies. I received a distress call from the horizon. A colony ship carrying 3,000 civilians, mostly families heading to a new world. By the time I arrived, there was nothing left but debris. The Coalition claimed it was an accident. He pulled up files on the main display, showing images that made Karen look away. I pulled bodies from the wreckage. Children, families, people who just wanted a new start. I sat in the morgue and identified remains while Coalition representatives explained how their navigational system had malfunctioned. They were lying, said. They were testing us, Daniel corrected, seeing how much we would tolerate. When we didn't retaliate, they did it again. New dawn, 2,000 more dead. After that, we stopped asking for justice and started preparing for war. Karen looked at the damage reports from the Coalition fleet, seeing the casualty numbers. So this was revenge. This was a message, Daniel said. For 5 years, we showed restraint. We tried diplomacy. We begged the Coalition to respect our sovereignty. They mistook our patience for weakness. Today, we taught them the cost of that mistake. The Coalition survivors began their departure, 47 damaged ships limping away from the battlefield. Their crews would carry the story of this day across the galaxy. how humanity's supposedly weak fleet had destroyed a coalition force 3 times its size, how the old ships everyone laughed at had concealed weapons that turned the battle into a one-sided slaughter. Watch the human fleet from his damaged ships. The Titans stood in formation around the old carriers, massive and menacing. Even now, after witnessing their power, part of him struggled to accept what had happened. The coalition was supposed to be invincible. They had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Humanity had been spacefaring for barely 3 decades. How, he whispered to himself, how did they build all this without us knowing? Heard the question. Because we never looked, he answered bitterly. We saw what we expected to see, old ships, primitive weapons. We assumed they were inferior because they were young. We never considered they might be hiding their true strength. The Council will want answers, said. They will want to know how our intelligence failed so completely. Our intelligence did not fail, replied. We failed. We saw humans as lesser beings. We treated them with contempt, and they used our arrogance against us. Back on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the surface, military commanders watched the battle results with grim satisfaction. Defense Minister Gregory Carter reviewed the reports, nodding every detail. The Titan project had cost trillions of credits and taken 3 decades to complete, but it had worked. What about public reaction? One general asked. When news of this battle spreads, there will be questions. People will want to know why we hid this capability. Let them ask, Carter replied. We'll tell them the truth. We hid our strength because showing it would have provoked a war we weren't ready for. We appeared weak until we could guarantee victory. That's not deception, that's survival. Another general spoke up. The coalition won't take this lying down. They'll prepare. They'll build counters to the Titans. Good, Carter said. While they're building counters, we'll be building the next generation. We're already 3 steps ahead. The Titans they saw today are our first-generation models. Generation 2 is in final testing. Generation 3 exists only in blueprints, but it will make today's Titans look like toys. He stood addressing the room. For 30 years, humanity has played the role of the weak newcomer. We bowed our heads. We accepted insults. We mourned our dead in silence. That ends now. The galaxy knows what we can do. They know the price of threatening us. From this day forward, humanity negotiates from a position of strength. Rogers sat in the Endeavor's mess hall, still in his flight suit, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Other pilots joined him, men and women who had faced death today and emerged victorious. They spoke in quiet voices, processing the battle, dealing with the reality of what they had done. Do you think it will work? One pilot asked. Will this really stop them from threatening us? Thought about the question. Maybe, maybe not, but at least now they know the cost. They know that attacking humanity means facing the Titans. They know that our old ships and primitive weapons were just the surface. What lies beneath is something they can't match. What about us? Another pilot asked. We revealed the Titans. We can't hide them anymore. Every future battle, they'll know what's coming. Let them know, said. Fear is a weapon too. Every coalition fleet that approaches human space will remember what happened in the frontier sector. They'll remember how their so-called superior technology couldn't save them. They'll think twice before testing us again. Admiral Grant sent her final report to Earth Command, detailing every aspect of the operation. The battle statistics, the weapon performance data, the strategic implications. But she also included a personal note, one that would be read by the highest levels of human government. Today, humanity drew a line. We showed the galaxy that we will not be bullied, threatened, or destroyed without consequence. The coalition came expecting an easy victory. They left broken and humiliated. This victory bought us time and respect, but it also made us enemies. The coalition will not forget this defeat. They will prepare, they will adapt, and they will return. We must use the time this victory bought us. We must continue building our defenses. We must prepare for the day when the coalition returns with fleets designed specifically to counter the Titans. We must stay ahead, stay hidden, stay ready. Because the next war will not be fought in one sector. It will be fought across the entire galaxy, and humanity must be ready to win it. Karen Shaw stood at the observation window of the Endeavor, watching stars drift by as the ship prepared to return to regular patrol duties. The battle felt like a dream now, something that happened to someone else. But the casualty reports were real. The destroyed ships were real. The message humanity sent was real. Did we do the right thing? She asked Daniel, who had joined her at the window. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. We did what we had to do. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried being the better species. The coalition took advantage of our restraint and killed our people. Today, we showed them the consequences of their actions. But was it right? Karen pressed. Right and wrong become complicated when survival is at stake, Daniel said. Was it right for them to destroy our colony ships? Was it right for them to claim our systems and dare us to fight back? Was it right for them to treat us like children playing at civilization? He shook his head. They gave us no choice, so we made them respect us the only way they understand, through force. The human fleet began its departure from the frontier sector, leaving behind wreckage and a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the weak newcomer. They were no longer the species that could be pushed around. They had revealed their true strength, and that strength was terrifying. In the days that followed, Coalition survivors returned to their home worlds with stories of the battle. Stories of massive combat machines that emerged from ships everyone thought were obsolete. Stories of weapons that tore through shields like they were nothing. Stories of a humanity that fought without mercy. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy learned to respect the species from Earth. Because humanity had sent a clear message. Push us too far, and we will show you what we truly built while you were laughing at our relics. Face the same fate. She turned to leave, then stopped. And make sure they understand, this was not our full strength. This was a warning. The message was clear. Humanity had shown mercy by letting them live. But that mercy extended only as far as allowing witnesses to survive. The galaxy needed to know what happened when you pushed humans too far. Missiles streaked from their tubes in waves. And hidden systems, particle beam arrays that had been concealed just like the Titans, activated for the first time. 28 ships, each one supposedly outdated and weak, unleashed firepower that matched a coalition battle group. The beams cut through space, precise and deadly, overwhelming shields that were already weakened from fighting the Titans. Rogers watched a coalition battleship die under the combined fire, its hull splitting like overripe fruit. "This is what you get," he muttered to himself. "You spent so long laughing at us, you forgot to actually look at what we built." The battle had turned into a slaughter, and it was only just beginning. "What are those things?" whispered, staring at the main display. The Titans emerged into space, and the mockery died in every coalition throat. "Locks released, Captain," confirmed. "Titans are ready for deployment." Daniel watched the coalition ships approach, their sleek forms cutting through space with contempt and certainty. They believed they had already won. They believed humanity was weak, desperate, clinging to outdated technology and fatting glory. They were about to learn the truth. "All ships," Daniel said quietly, "wake the Titans."